Good evening, everybody. This is Bob Unger from The Bob Unger Show, and I am very, very honored, I must say, to have as our guest Heshy Tischler, who I only recently met, but I can tell a mensch when I see one. And for the non-Jews out there, basically a mensch means a real person, a real down-to-earth human being, a decent person who understands right and wrong. That's what a mensch is. My uncle used to say you can lie on a bed or lie on a bench, but most of all, sei a mensch. So Hesh has gotten some notoriety in the news recently because he's involved in Borough Park with regard to the government cracking down on the religious Jewish community and shutting down synagogues and trying to stop them from having minions, and a general restriction of religious freedom, of course, not only for Jews, but for all decent people. So Hesh, how did you get involved in this cause, and why did you get involved?
Well, Bob, thank you for having me. I have been, people have asked me my job title for many years, and my job title is pretty simple. I help people. I've really been behind the scenes for the last 35 years. You know, when there's a kid in trouble, they bring him to my house. When somebody has a problem with his building, I was a contractor, developer. So like synagogues and schools, they get in trouble with the rules and regulations. And I'm very good with rules, regulations, laws. I've been volunteering in the hospital for 30 years. We have a youth center here in Borough Park where I volunteer. Me and my cousin, we package 137, we're up to 137 meals, not meals, I'm sorry, boxes. Every week we feed the poor families. We have certain families. So I've been part of my community for the last 35 years. I've been helping my neighbors. I take people to Sloan Catering for my parties. I've been involved with a lot of my local neighbors for the years. So this is nothing new what I do. And I'm always behind the scenes, even in the political world. Somebody's running for office, they come to me for an endorsement, or for my local, just for the local people to walk around with them, take a picture with them. Nothing major. I'm usually quiet. Like my partner tells me, we get things done because we're under the radar. When I fight the Department of Buildings or Housing or city or the government agencies, I know the red tape. Fighting a mayor of city of New York is easier because when I get things done in New York, I have 50 different places where to get approved from to run around. So when I got involved here is there was the mayor closed the parks of the city of New York. And as I drove around, I saw the parks were open in other areas except for the Jewish community. I got angry. And I kept calling the councilman, my senator, my assemblyman, the police people. I volunteer in the police as well. I help them. I do little things, drop off food. You know, we're very cordial to our police here. We're very, very accommodating. Like when there was a Tuesday night, they had this protest. I really wasn't my protest. The police had a problem breaking it up. They called me 1 o'clock in the morning. I got dressed and I jumped out there to help break it up. These are the things I've done for our community. If somebody gets arrested, I go to the police department. I figure out a way with other community leaders to bail them out, come up with the money, and so on. What happened was here is when the mayor started attacking the Jewish community, nobody stood up. And my son said to me, "Pop, the parks are closed. Can you do something?" I said, "No." He says, "Why don't you just open it?" And that's what I did. I opened it with a lock cutter, and I went to open up another one. I went to Crown Heights. I went to the Bronx. I went to Far Rockaway. I went to Queens, and I opened up quite a bit of parks. And the police started to respect me because they saw I just didn't do it for the Jewish people. I did it for everybody. Plus, a lot of them know that I volunteer in the hospitals and so on. So then it just happened is the mayor just kept torturing these neighbors of mine, and he keeps now shutting down schools when he tells them to comply. I was on the phone with the police chief and all the 40 police officers on Thursday, discussing on how to run the holidays properly and how the enforcement should be done. Again, the mayor just swarmed down neighborhoods with DOH inspectors who are not qualified. Guys he took off the street and they made inspectors.
Okay, you just said that when the mayor started attacking the Jewish community, describe the manner in which you say the mayor was attacking the Jewish community.
Well, forget that he singled out the community on the phone. Forget that he singled out. There were one or two callers who are Jewish, like Mr. Kornbluth, and he called into that community. But my point is I go to the hospital every day, Bob. Now, Bob, can I stress it to you, the word every day? Okay, I go there not for you, Bob. I go for my friends. Your mother needs a help, or somebody. Heshy, can you just walk in and check on the guy? Can you go drop off a package of food to them? I go every day and I do these little things. I'm not a big time player. So I know, and I have my friends in the emergency room. I have the doctors upstairs. They give me the reports. Also, I'm watching the city give testing in my neighborhood. They give out tests in the outdoors, which can be contaminated, not in nice conditions where when you go to a doctor, you have a sterile room to do a blood test, a sterile room for examination. Here they're doing COVID testing in the parks. How do you bring a person who has COVID to a park where there are little children? So either it's true or it's not true. Plus, our testing has shown that 40% of the PCR tests are wrong. But let's forget about that. The other week, your health department king, Mr. Katz, comes into our neighborhood on the beginning of a holiday when nobody was around with no paperwork, started saying there's an uptick. We said, why are you coming here without paperwork or documentation? Then they bring their testing place to our park, and I go there every day. I was watching them. We had cameras watching them. I had the neighbors watching them. 14 people were tested an entire week, Bob. And I read the list off. I got the list out of their garbage. 13 of them were Latinos, one Jewish person. How do you tell a red zone that have 200,000 people in 3 zip codes? Really, it's like maybe a 40 block area, 50 block area, and you're able to tell these 200,000 people that there's an uptick in COVID because you tested 14 people. This is what I'm saying is targeting. He's constantly coming after us. He's constantly, it's not only now, even when I work with the Department of Buildings, his inspectors are going around to Jewish job sites, shutting them down for minor nothing. They violate us $5,000-$10,000 if we're fully in compliance with COVID, or if there's one piece of paper or one document or something not filled out, shut down the job, $5,000. He's trying to hurt us, and he knows this is the way to get it. You know, I'm a HPD receiver, means I work for the city as well. My tenants are paying rent. They know that I want to keep the building in good condition. They know the money is being used properly. The people I'm working complying, the people who are not paying rent, and I do it for Jewish people, older people, Black people, Spanish people, Asian people. This mayor only knows how to hate Jewish people. Because constantly, if you go to the Bronx, Bob, there's an 8% uptick. Go look at your numbers. I have it all printed out. Why don't you go to Corona, Queens, where there's 7%. There's places in Upper Manhattan that have 10%. You're picking Jewish communities and giving numbers which are not real numbers. He hasn't produced to you the numbers. I don't care what you're telling me, CDC. And here's my final thing, because I talk so much. Go to the CDC website. Go to the Department of Health website. You will see the death rate of last year and the death rate of this year. They're identical except for March, April, May, and June. Because we didn't know how to control it. This year, now, since July, it's all evened out and gotten less. Why? Because people are not trusting the hospitals. The hospital ventilators didn't work. Now, when you have COVID or suspicion of it, you put on oxygen. There's an oxygen treatment. People are using antibiotics. Family members are being allowed back into the hospital to sit with their family, to watch and help. Back then, they didn't know what they were doing. I was screaming at a cousin of mine, Bob, who's in the nursing home business. And I said to her, how do you have a nerve, a right to be understaffed? We don't get enough money. I said, well, then find more money or shut down your business. But if you don't know how to treat a person right and they're dying, you're a murderer. And it's my own relative. I'm very upset. They were wealthy, taking care of the elderly. You now have to continue. And Bob, where are all the homeless people? 69,000 families or people in the street. You're not watching them. They're not wearing masks. You spend $300 million to put them in hotels, and still there's a lot of them on the street. My point to you is I see the mismanagement. I see the triplicate agencies. And then when you go to the agencies and ask for help, and that's what I do, Bob. It's not like I'm a new guy to this. This is what I do. And I see the red tape to continue while people are suffering. People can't pay rent. I have people now who have no food, Bob. Bob, no food, Bob.
Yep. Well, Heshy, you alluded to two things that I took note of. Number one, you mentioned the PCR test. Now, there is no scientific validation for the PCR test because throughout the past 10, 15 years, there have been numerous cases where they give more false positive than they give false negative. There was a case in a hospital in 2006. Even the New York Nazi Times wrote this up. The New York Nazi Times reported that in this hospital, there was a whooping cough epidemic that was determined by a PCR test. They put 1,000 workers in quarantine. They were putting them in ICU, and it turned out that nobody had whooping cough. This is documented by the New York Nazi Times. And despite that, they use this non-validated, non-empirically validated test, number one. Number two, you alluded to de Blasio's animus towards the Jewish community. Now, I told a reporter when I was with you in Brooklyn that in my opinion, part of this stems from the fact that Orthodox Jews, and I really hate that word Orthodox to tell you the truth, a Jew is a Jew. Either your mother was a Jew or you're not a Jew. You know,
exactly.
I don't like this Orthodox stuff, but for lack of a better word to make it simplified, I'm saying Orthodox. The Jewish people who follow the Torah, who follow the morals of the Bible, they represent the traditional values that underpin the foundations of the founding of the American Republic. And so the Jewish Bible, unfortunately, is antithetical to all of the liberal non-values that totally contradict the Bible, and the Jewish people who follow the Bible and believe in the Bible and stand for the principles that are given to us from the Bible, they are hated by liberals, including Jewish liberals. It's not just de Blasio. I don't know what he is. He's got an Italian name, but he's German. Maybe he's a Cherokee Indian. But that's why, in my opinion, they're so disliked, because they stand up for something. And unfortunately, in this world of moral relativism, in this secularized world where all of a sudden religious people and God-fearing people are the enemy, there is hatred coming from the liberal media, from the politicians, from the Gentiles, and from the Jews themselves. What do you think about that?
Bob, I mean, if you didn't hit it on the head, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, but I want to go a step further with you. This guy thinks that he can control us. You know, next year there's going to be an election year, and de Blasio, who changed his name from Warren Wilhelm to de Blasio to sound Italian, he thinks that, assuming is, when it comes next year and he can still push this pandemic story further, he can maybe make martial law, put an executive order that there's no elections. Everybody's accusing the president of stopping elections. I believe de Blasio wants to get reelected and he can't get a third term. Also, as you noticed, there was one guy supporting de Blasio for president. It was a guy by the name of Greenfeld, our old city councilman. Otherwise, nobody else supported de Blasio. He had the teachers union, he had the Jews when he ran for mayor, but this time around, everybody said, no way, we're not helping you, you're an idiot. And nobody backed. He got less than 1%, so of course he's going to punish us, because this is where the money was. Mr. de Blasio's incompetence of running a city with 337,000 employees. He never was an employer. He has no right. He hasn't allowed any of his people with furloughs. Half of them, I'm sure, have underlying conditions. We know of many of them that have. Again, all of them are getting pay. All of them are getting sick pay. We cannot work. We cannot have our stores open. But his inspectors, his office staff, that closes at 1 o'clock. A lot of their offices close at 1 o'clock and they get paid full days. I've seen injustice all my life. Children on the street I've taken off. Kids that are being abused. People that go hungry. I have places that I go every day and I drop off $5, $2, a coat, a sweater. I get some donations, and I'm constantly going to my regulars. My youth center, we have twice a week for boys, some days a week for girls. We have GED programs. We can only take 40, 50, 60 off the street. We have one drug center and one drug rehab in the whole Borough Park Flatbush Midwood for 200,000 families. We have $20,000 given to us for postpartum depression. These are things he doesn't care about our community. And I've always fought for these things behind the scenes, collecting money, raising money for my food program, for the boxes for families, for the weekends, making sure my youth program, the few little things to deal with the kids. Whenever, like last year, I want to tell you a story. Usually I work very late, and I always mess up with my wife. I somehow mess up every year on our anniversary. Last year's anniversary was Labor Day weekend. I promised her, I said, Linda, you pack your bag. We're leaving Thursday night. Nothing will stop us. Linda packed her little purple suitcase, her pink suitcase. She was walking down the steps, and as it is, somebody from the youth center pulled up with 2 kids. Heshy, we have nowhere to put them. One of them is sleeping in a spa being molested. He's 16, an 18-year-old runaway. Nobody wants to touch him. Heshy, take him. My wife came down to the bottom of the stairs. I saw those eyes burning in the back of my head, Bob. She turned around and unpacked. We had an open room that we were saving for somebody coming home from jail. And because we have a lot of people that when they come home from jail, we take them in, we give them jobs, we try to help them. I do a lot with the people who are coming home from prison, and we gave them this room. And with the 18-year-old boy, we were able to find a foster family right away, but nobody was going to touch the 16-year-old. And we kept him for 10 months. My beautiful wife fed him, we helped him. We worked with him with money. We tried to get him a job. We tried to get him into the GED program. And 10 months later, we found a good family to take him, and he came along right. And again, I can only do this one at a time. So if you think that this is something new for me to fight for my community, it's not. I've been doing it for 35 years. I've gotten in trouble fighting for the community. I fought sanitation. I got arrested for fighting the sanitation department for issuing tickets up and down everybody's street. I fight, everybody says you were arrested for immigration fraud. I was fighting for immigration. This one lawyer, I used to bring him to people. I thought he was a lawyer. He became a friend. He tricked me. He forged my name. At the end, I got in trouble for not cooperating with the government. So they all have it as a conspiracy. I've helped this community. People know when they're in trouble in this community, from their homes to their buildings to their rent. We have a foundation that I give out a little bit of money every month, named to my mother who left us money. How much can you do, Bob? One help, one rent, one grocery bill. I go around collecting. I try to ask people to give money, not to me, to other people. I've done this for all these years. Nobody has stepped up now. I decided I'm going to step up. Why did I do it now, Bob? I was really ready to retire. I'm 56 years old. Me and my woman are ready to take our time, go down to Florida and chill. And 21 foster kids, our 3 children, our 104 nephews and nieces. We were going to chill, sit back. I was going to watch TV and just let my wife scream at me all day long. She's got the right away. So that's what we were going to do. And instead, this has come up. Can I idly stand by? Can I idly see my neighbors suffer? Can I stand by and have the good name of not only me and my community, who have not looted, who have not robbed, who have not tortured, who do nothing illegal, who cooperate with the city, and we do the best we can. We build our homes. We even patrol our own neighborhoods. There's so little crime here. But again, the mayor comes after us. And this is what I did. So I stood up. Nobody else stood up. Why did I do it, Bob? I'll tell you why. Because this is what I did all my life. I did it when I was in high school. After my father died, I raised my brothers and my sister. I raised my family. I raised a lot of other kids. I've helped a lot of families. I've given jobs in the hundreds of people work release, people from prison, people who just wanted to get a better way of life. I showed them. So yes, is it time for me to stop? What do you want me to do, Bob? Sit back and let the government do when I see injustice? I fought injustice all my life. That's what my job is.
Well, the great British philosopher Edmund Burke said that all that is necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. And that's what happens. You create a vacuum and evil wins. The thing that bothered me, Heshy, when I
gotta use that quote. You got to text
Edmund Burke, his name is.
Good.
All that's necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. When I was at Borough Park and I schlepped over there from Great Drek over here.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for showing your support. And was that a nice evening?
Well, listen, just meeting you was really, it was terrific because there's so few like you left, unfortunately. You know, you're like the men of my family that I grew up with. They were mensches. They were known. They had quite a reputation. But I wanted to ask you, I was very bothered when I arrived in Borough Park, because I'm not there very often. And I saw all these New York City cars going around the block and around the block with announcements. You must put on your mask. Governor Cuomo and Mayor de Blasio have said that you must be wearing masks. And then I saw what looked to me like spies on various corners. They had walkie-talkies. They were, using their cameras and taking all kinds of pictures. And I thought I was in a futuristic horror movie where, like George Orwell's book, 1984, where the fascist state controls everybody. I never saw such a thing. And I'm saying to myself, you need all these police for a bunch of Hasidic Jews? What are they going to do? Mug you? Give you a false accounting statement? What are they going to do to you? Who are they going to mug? Who are they going to rape? Who are they going to rob? You need all those cops? What danger is anyone in that community, any decent person, to be in that community? There's zero danger. That bothered me a lot. And then one of the top brass came over to me. I don't think you were there. And he said, put on a mask. And I said, why should I? He said, because if you don't, you can be arrested. I said, really? On what basis? He said, you're breaking the law. I said, really? I happen to be a lawyer. So could you please cite for me the law you're referring to? So he says, it's an order from Governor Cuomo. I said, oh, it's an order from El Duque that we have to do what he says. His words are an order. That only occurs in a fascist dictatorship. It doesn't occur in a constitutional republic. And in a constitutional republic, our rights are unalienable, as it says in the Declaration of Independence. Unalienable means because you were created by God, these rights are inherent in you, as a God-created person, and nobody can take it away for any reason whatsoever. And I know you've got a tough schedule and you're busy, and I really appreciate your coming on. I hope to be a friend of yours forever, and may God bless you, because in the end, as you know, Heshy, God is not going to ask us, what kind of a Mercedes-Benz did you drive? How many Cadillacs did you own? How many houses did you own? No, he's going to ask, what did you do? Were you a Kadush Hashem or a Chalul Hashem, as many of these moisers are? And that will be the moment that I, as a lawyer, if I have the privilege, would like to be with you to tell Hashem what I've seen so far.
I love you, Bob. I want you to know one final note before you go. As I tell a lot of people, in the end days, I will answer to God, and I will stand before the Holy Maker, and I will answer to him that I have worked for my neighbors. I've helped people in jail. I've helped young children. And this is what I do. Tomorrow, when I'm going to be arrested, as you know, at 10 a.m. for entrapment and for inciting a riot. When the police themselves called me 1 o'clock in the morning to come back the day before to help them break up the crowd. When the police, I made a deal with the police the night you came to our protest. Was that a nice protest? We only did it on 2 blocks. We did it with the police approval. We had music there. 2 hours later, we shut down the music, and then we were starting to disperse. This one gentleman caused me an issue. He called me and harassed me. Somebody calls you 3 o'clock in the morning. Are you not going to be upset with him? This guy calls me at 3 o'clock in the morning and texts me and says, I better apologize. Then the next day he comes. He was there the first night. The next day he comes. He's the one that incited the riot. He wanted to make noise. He wanted to make trouble. He wanted to get into it because the community hated him for calling the mayor every day. So it wasn't only me. The community knew that he's a rat to the community. Why would you come to a festival where everybody hates you? The mayor is using it as an example to beat me. Here's my final words to you, Bob. Mr. Mayor, Mr. Governor, I'm not scared of you. So you put me back in jail for a day, you give me another fine, I'm coming to you. I'm going to win the city council. I'm going to win it with many people in there. We're going to take over the city council, and the next mayor won't be able to do this. We're going to suffer for a year, but just like all the other protests, we're going to have civil disobedience. We're not going to follow his rules. We're going to take our fines, and when I get to the city council, if I get there, like a lot of people told me today, what happens if you don't make it? Well, it's a gamble, but if I do make it, I'll wipe out the fines. I walk around my neighborhood, Borough Park and Flatbush. It takes me an hour to walk 5 blocks sometimes. They pull me into their sukkahs and their houses because they know that I've always been here. People have seen what I've done. I'm embarrassed to tell you, Bob, of the good stuff I do because it's nobody's business. I don't need to tell you what I've done because I'm doing it anyways. Whether you ask me to do it or not, I do it. Now I guess I have to let it out because this is going to help me get to the next level. And I appreciate all your time, Bob. And I thank you so much. And I hope, I don't want you to be up there with me. If I go, you stay. Go alone. But if you're there, I'll say hello. But don't come, Bob. We're not going. There's no go. Trust me, she likes to torture me.
Have a good night and stay in touch.
You better come to the house for Shabbos meal. Bring the kids, the grandkids, your mother, your uncle, your sisters. I don't care. My house, this Shabbos, our door was open. People were just coming in. And I told Linda to cook extra. Thank God we have not a drop of food left. I'm so happy.
Well, I'm sure she keeps you well fed, right?
She does, baby. She does.
All right, Hesh. Thank you so much.
Good night, baby.